On our anniversary, my mill called my husband crying and said, "She doesn't deserve you. She's just using you until something better comes along." He took her to dinner instead of me. When I asked why, he said, "I don't want her to feel left out." So I made a reservation for one, at that same restaurant. And when they sat down, I walked up to their table, set down the gift I had for him, and whispered, "Enjoy your new date. She's all yours now." Then I left, took the car, and canceled our joint accounts by midnight. I was standing in the parking lot of the Capitol Grill in Denver, holding a small wrapped box I'd spent weeks putting together, when I saw them walk in ahead of me, my husband and his mother. Her arm looped through his head bent toward her like she was the one he was celebrating an anniversary with, not me. I shouldn't have been surprised. The night had already gone to hell before it even started. It began with his phone ringing just as we were getting dressed. I was putting on the necklace he bought me on our first anniversary, feeling weirdly hopeful for the first time in months. Then I heard her voice through the speaker, wet, dramatic sobbing. "She doesn't deserve you, sweetie. She's just using you until something better comes along." My stomach dropped. I froze mid-buttoning my dress. I expected him to defend me, or at least end the call. Instead, he put a comforting hand on the dresser like he needed steadying. "Mom, don't cry, I'll come get you, we'll talk." I remember saying, "What about our reservation?" And he just stared at me like I was being dramatic. "I don't want her to feel left out tonight. She's been emotional lately." Left out on my anniversary, so I told him fine. I said it calm because the anger hadn't hit me yet, just disbelief. "Go take her to dinner." He didn't even hesitate, just nodded, grabbed his jacket, and left. I sat there alone on our bed, staring at the blank wall, trying to understand how a grown man could ditch his wife on their anniversary because his mother was jealous enough to sabotage the entire evening. The longer I sat, the clearer everything got. So I made a reservation for one, at the exact same restaurant. When they sat down, laughing softly, her wiping invisible tears and him leaning in like the perfect son, I walked up to their table. Neither of them noticed me until I set the gift box down right between their plates. My husband jumped a little. She just smirked. I leaned forward, close enough that only they could hear, and whispered, "Enjoy your new date, she's all yours now." And then I walked out. I took the car. I went home. And by midnight, every single joint account was closed or frozen. But here's the thing I haven't told you yet. The part that didn't click until later. The part that turned this from a humiliating night into something much darker. That dinner wasn't the first time he chose her over me. Not even close. And the reason why God, when I finally learned it, it felt like the ground vanished under me. Before all this, people used to say my husband, Mark, was a mama boy, but in that harmless, sitcom way. The kind where everyone laughs about how he calls her every day or asks her opinion on paint colors. I thought it was cute at first. Charming, even. My own parents were distant, so watching a mother and son be close felt oddly comforting. But looking back, it was never close. It was entangled. When we first started dating, his mom, Linda, would find little ways to slide herself into our time. Mark and I would be planning to see a movie, and suddenly he'd say, "Mom wants to come too." "She hasn't seen this one." And I'd tell myself it was fine. I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. I didn't want to be controlling, so I swallowed it. The first real red flag happened the night he proposed. We were in Washington Park, snow still on the edges of the grass. He got down on one knee, I started crying, said yes, this whole beautiful moment. But while he was slipping the ring on my finger, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. His mother, standing behind a tree, recording the entire thing on her phone. He told me later she just wanted to be part of the special moment, and I remember laughing it off even though it made my skin crawl. I pushed the discomfort down because I loved him. I truly did. I wanted us to work. But marriage made everything worse. Our wedding day felt less like our day and more like a mother-son pageant. She wore a long cream dress, basically a wedding gown, and cried so dramatically the pastor actually paused. She insisted on dancing with him 3 times during the reception. She even tried to follow us into the bridal suite after the party under the excuse of helping us settle in. The weirdest part? Mark kept apologizing for her, but never telling her no. "Just ignore her behavior," he'd whisper. "She gets emotional. She got emotional a lot." When I got a promotion at work, she accused me of trying to outrank her son. When we bought our first house, she told me she should have been the one to pick the kitchen tile. When we decided to start trying for a baby, she had a full meltdown because we didn't include her in the planning. Still, Mark always had some excuse. She doesn't mean it. She loves you in her own way. You know how she is. I started to wonder if maybe I did know how she was and he just refused to see it. But even with all the warning signs, I didn't understand the real depth of her possessiveness until right before our anniversary. She'd been calling him more than usual, sending long texts, dropping by unannounced. She'd make these pointed comments like, "Some women don't appreciate what they have. Be careful who you trust. You never know someone's true intentions." I thought she was just trying to get under my skin. I didn't realize she was building up to something deliberate, something planned. And the first hint came 2 nights before our anniversary when I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. A conversation that made my blood run cold. 2 nights before our anniversary, I came home late from work. Mark's car was in the driveway, but the house was dark except for this faint glow coming from the kitchen. I figured he was making a late snack or scrolling on his phone. I pushed the door open quietly, mostly because I didn't want to startle him. But then I heard voices. Not talking, whispering. I stopped in the hallway, holding my breath, because something in the tone it wasn't normal. It wasn't his usual, "Yeah, Mom, I know" voice. It was lower, tense, like they were sharing a secret. I stepped closer just until I could make out words. Linda's voice first, sharp and trembling. "She's changing you, Mark. I told you this would happen. I told you she'd separate us." Then his tired, stressed, but not defensive like he should have been. "Mom, you have to calm down, you're overthinking this." "Overthinking what?" She sniffled. "I can't lose you, I won't, not to someone who doesn't appreciate you." There was this long stretch of silence. I leaned in just a hair. My heart was pounding so loud I worried they might hear it. Then I heard something I still wish I hadn't. Linda said, almost growling, "You promised me you'd never abandon me. You promised." And Mark, God, he whispered, "I know. I remember. Remember what?" When I pushed the door open just enough to see, they were sitting shoulder to shoulder at our kitchen table. Her hand was gripping his forearm. His head was down like a child being scolded. Neither of them saw me. I backed away quietly, and by the time I made it upstairs, my hands were shaking so hard I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. I told myself I'd talk to him later. But he came up hours after, smelling like the bourbon they kept on the bottom shelf. He just kissed my forehead, said he was tired, and fell into bed without another word. The next day, he acted perfectly normal. Like nothing had happened, like I hadn't watched his mother clutch him like she owned him. And then came the anniversary day. The crying phone call, her attacks on my character, his immediate obedience. At first, I thought maybe he was just conditioned, something old and messed up in their family dynamic. Something he didn't know how to break. But when I walked out of that restaurant after dropping the gift on their table, barely holding myself together, something clicked in my memory. A few weeks before, during an argument where she accused me of pulling him away, she said something strange. "You don't understand the history between us." She said it with this smugness that made the hair rise on my arms. At the time, I wrote it off. But after that dinner, after seeing the way he chose her without hesitation, the way she smirked when I walked up, I realized she wasn't just jealous. She felt entitled to him. Like he belonged to her in a way that didn't include me or anyone else. And that's when I finally dug deeper. I looked through things I never thought I'd look through. Old messages, old emails, financial documents. A few things he kept hidden in a locked drawer I'd never questioned before. And the first thing I found, it blew open everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The locked drawer was the one he kept in his home office. The drawer I'd never touched because trust used to be the foundation of everything between us. But after that night, after watching him play date night with his mother on our anniversary, trust didn't feel like something I owed him anymore. I knew where he kept the spare key. Top bookshelf, wedged inside an old baseball trophy. My hands were shaking as I opened the drawer, half expecting to find nothing, half terrified of what I might. But what I found, God. I sat back on the floor so hard the chair behind me hit the wall. There were printed emails, screenshots of text messages, bank statements, and all of them had one thing in common. They were between Mark and his mother about me, not discussions, not concerns, not normal mother-son venting. Plans. Actual detailed plans to monitor me, to test me, to keep me in line. The first email that made my stomach flip was dated 4 months after our wedding. It was from Linda to Mark. You need to make sure she isn't hiding money. Women like her always do. I can look through her purse again when we visit. Again, then another one responding to something he must have sent her. You're right to be cautious. She's trying to isolate you. Don't let her win. The moment you let your guard down, she'll take over. There were dozens like that. Dozens. Some were about where I went after work. Some were about which friends of mine she didn't approve of. Some were about how dependent I seemed on Mark emotionally, something they apparently needed to correct. But the message that changed everything was one I recognized instantly because I remembered the night it happened. It was an email from Mark to his mom, time-stamped after midnight, sent on a night when he and I had our first really big marital argument. I thought we had gone to bed upset and handled it the next morning. But while I was crying in the bathroom, trying to collect myself, he had been writing this. Don't worry, Mom. I won't let her get in between us. I'm just doing what you said, showing her she can't control me. She'll calm down. I know the plan is working. The plan, I kept reading. And then I found the one that shattered whatever pieces of trust I still had left from his mother. Good. Remember what we talked about. Keep her off balance. Make her think she's overreacting. If she feels insecure, she'll cling to you more. That's what you want. And the worst part, he responded, I know, I won't let you down. I felt something inside me snap, not just heartbreak, not just betrayal, but clarity. This wasn't just a clingy mother. This wasn't just an immature husband. This was coordination, manipulation, a two-person psychological campaign against me, one I never even realized I was living inside. I sat on the floor with those papers spread around me, remembering all the moments that felt off in our marriage. Times I cried, and he said I was making things bigger than they were. Times he ignored me for days, then acted like nothing happened. Times his mother made comments he insisted I misinterpreted. They weren't accidents. They weren't misunderstandings. They were tactics. Planned, practiced, executed, and suddenly the anniversary dinner wasn't just disrespect. It was escalation. But the thing that sent cold dread down my spine wasn't the emails. It was one document tucked underneath them, an envelope with a signature I recognized immediately. His. It was something he had hidden from me for months. And it was the proof that everything I believed about our future together was a lie. The envelope was thick, and when I slid the papers out, I saw legal letterhead. For a second, my brain tried to fill in something reasonable, insurance paperwork, maybe something about the house, tax forms. Anything but what I knew deep down it really was. The first page confirmed it. A separation agreement. Already drafted, already signed, already prepared to file. My name was typed neatly beside his, my date of birth, my employment, my assets. He had listed out everything, my salary, my retirement contributions, the savings account I'd had since college. He had even itemized the furniture I brought into the marriage. But the part that made my whole body go cold was the date on the document. 6 months ago. Meaning, while he was saying he wanted to start trying for a baby, while he was kissing me goodnight, while he was taking me out to brunch and telling me we were finally settling into married life, he was planning to leave. And not just leave, he was preparing to take half of everything I owned. The agreement was written in a way that favored him so heavily it looked like his mother had drafted it herself. I sat there on the floor, staring at that date, reading and rereading it until the words blurred. This wasn't heartbreak. This was ambush. This was him luring me into a false sense of security while his mother orchestrated every step like she was directing a play. But here's the thing about betrayal that deep. Once the shock wears off, something else replaces it. Precision. Cold, clear, terrifying precision. I closed the drawer, locked it back, put the key exactly where it had been. Then I sat at his desk with my laptop and opened every financial portal we had. I didn't touch anything yet. I needed timing. I needed leverage. I needed him completely exposed. Because if he and his mother had spent months planning to gut me emotionally and financially, then they were about to learn what I looked like when I planned something too. Over the next 2 days, while he acted normal, kissing my cheek goodbye, texting me little updates from work, I executed step 1. Gather everything. I printed his emails, screenshotted his messages, saved every bank statement, recorded a copy of the separation agreement, took photos of their plan notes. Then came step 2, move quietly. I opened a new bank account at a different credit union, transferred my personal funds, redirected my paycheck, changed passwords, secured my credit reports, opened a P.O. box, met with an attorney, someone who was very familiar with cases like mine, where the spouse was being financially and emotionally manipulated by family. She didn't look surprised. That almost scared me. Step 3 was the hardest. Act normal. I had to smile at Mark, ask him about his day. Pretend I didn't know his mother had branded me as the enemy. Pretend I didn't know he had prepped for a future without me while I was still trying to build one. Every night I laid beside him, listening to him sleep, replaying the emails in my head. He said, "I won't let you down," to his mother. Not to me. Never to me. And the closer our anniversary got, the more certain I became that the dinner fiasco wasn't spontaneous. Her tears weren't sudden. His choice wasn't impulsive. It was coordinated, a test, a push, a trigger, maybe even the moment they planned to start the separation process. But then something happened, something they didn't prepare for. He slipped. He said something offhand, something small, something he absolutely did not mean to admit. And that slip revealed a truth darker than anything I'd uncovered in that drawer. A truth that changed the entire context of everything. The emails, the manipulation, the weird closeness, all of it. It happened the night after the restaurant incident, when he came home acting like I was the one who owed him an explanation. He walked in around 11 p.m., smelling like steak, and that cologne he only wears when he wants to look good for someone. Not me, not anymore. He tossed his keys into the bowl by the door and said, annoyed, "You really embarrassed me tonight." I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV while I monitored the last of the account transfers on my laptop. I didn't look at him, did I? Looked like you and your date were doing fine. He sighed, this deep, world-weary sigh I'd heard him use on his mother, but never on me. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I kept my eyes on the screen, mostly so he wouldn't see how dead calm I'd become. Then explain. He paced behind me, running a hand through his hair. Mom is fragile, you know that. She needs reassurance. She needs to feel important. I didn't respond. Let silence build. It makes people spill, he kept talking. You don't know what she's been through. You don't know the promises I made. Promises, there it was again. I finally turned my head just enough to see him. What promises, Mark? He froze, too still, like he'd stepped into a trap. Then he said the sentence that cracked the ground open under everything I thought I knew. Dad made me swear I'd take care of her. My confusion must have shown on my face, because he swallowed hard and added, almost whispering. He made me swear it the night he left. Left, not died, left. That wasn't what Mark had always told me. He always said his father died of a heart condition when he was young. A tragic loss. A wound that shaped him. I stared at him. Mark, what do you mean left? He closed his eyes like he'd already said too much. I don't want to talk about this. But I wasn't letting it go, not now. Your father didn't die, he didn't answer. He just kept pacing, nervous, frantic, like a kid caught cheating. Mark, I said, voice steady, did your father leave your mother? And then, barely audible, he didn't just leave her, he ran from her. My whole body went cold. He kept pacing, hands in his hair, breathing fast. He said she was obsessive, controlling. He said she'd ruin me too if I wasn't careful. But he also said I couldn't abandon her because it would make everything worse. So he made me promise. He made me swear I'd stay by her, take care of her, keep her close, no matter what. He finally stopped pacing and looked straight at me with eyes full of something that wasn't love or remorse, it was fear. I didn't tell you because you wouldn't understand, he said. You'd think she was unhealthy. Unhealthy, Jesus. Unhealthy didn't cover half of it. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. I just let the truth settle in my chest like ice water. His father didn't die. He escaped. And Mark wasn't a clueless mama's boy. He was a man raised in a psychological chokehold, groomed to keep his mother emotionally fed at any cost. Even if that cost was me. But the worst part, the part that made my stomach twist, the next thing he said, quiet, shaky, revealing something even darker. Mom told me, if you and I ever had kids, she was afraid you'd try to take them away from her. Kids. The topic his mother had been weirdly fixated on for months. The topic she had cried about. The topic she had monitored. And then he added, "So she said maybe we should wait, or maybe not have kids at all." Not have kids. Not because we decided it, because she did. Suddenly, all the emotional moments, all the concerns, all the manipulation snapped into focus. This wasn't protectiveness. This wasn't insecurity. This was possession. His mother wasn't afraid of losing her son. She was afraid of sharing him with anyone, even a future grandchild. And then came the final blow of that night, the true twist. He sat down beside me, lowered his voice, and said, "You need to try harder with her. If you don't, she said she'll make sure the separation goes her way." Separation. The word he wasn't supposed to know I knew. But more importantly, she'd already told him he'd be leaving me. Not asked, not suggested, told, and he wasn't fighting it. He was preparing for it. That's when I realized the truth. This wasn't a marriage. This was a slow-motion extraction, and both of them thought I'd just accept it. They had no idea they were already too late. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake next to him, listening to his breathing, knowing, finally, what I was really up against. And it wasn't just a controlling mother-in-law. It wasn't just a weak husband. It was something colder, older, and more calculated than I ever imagined. The next day, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. A long text preview flashed across the screen, his mother's name at the top. Normally, I wouldn't touch someone's phone, but nothing about my life was normal anymore. I opened the thread. And in the middle of dozens of messages about me, updates, complaints, tiny manipulations I now recognized as their daily routine, I found the one that revealed everything. It wasn't a rant. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't even emotional. It was logistical. "We're almost there. Once she's destabilized enough, he won't question the next step. This marriage needed to end before she traps him. We can do this cleanly if he stays focused." My heart clenched. Traps him, destabilize. This wasn't jealousy. This was strategy. Then another message, sent the night before our anniversary. "Push her into reacting. He needs to see her as unpredictable so he won't feel guilty when the separation finalizes. Dinner will be perfect. Be emotional, not angry." My stomach turned. Dinner wasn't her being dramatic. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't her feeling left out. It was the trigger, the final step in a plan she'd spent years refining. Then I saw a message from months earlier, one that spelled out, with surgical cruelty, exactly why she wanted me gone. "Once she's out of the way, we can go back to how things were before. Just you and me. The way your father hated but couldn't break." I reread that line again, and again, and again. Just you and me, just you and me. I finally understood why his father ran, why he never came back. Why he warned Mark to keep her close, even as he escaped himself. Not to protect her, to contain her. Linda didn't want her son's happiness. She didn't want balance. She didn't want boundaries. She wanted ownership of him. Of his decisions, of his future, of every emotional resource he had. And I was a threat, not because I was toxic or manipulative or dangerous, but because I existed. Because I loved him. Because I could take even 1 inch of attention away from her. And that wasn't allowed. Not in her world. The more messages I scrolled through, the more horrifying everything became. She had been shaping him since childhood. Every choice, every fear, every guilt button he carried. She kept him tied to her with a mix of obligation, emotional blackmail, and a narrative about other women always trying to steal him. She didn't hate me because of who I was. She hated me because of what I represented. A door he might walk through, a door that could lead him away from her. A door his father took when he left. She needed to close that door forever. And Mark, he wasn't fighting her. He wasn't resisting. He wasn't even conflicted. He had been groomed for this, conditioned for it, since childhood. That's why he never defended me, why he always took her side, why he let her attack me, undermine me, sabotage me. Because to him, love meant compliance. Love meant submission. Love meant choosing his mother over himself, over anyone. He wasn't just manipulated. He was trained. And I was never supposed to win. But here's what neither of them understood. I'm not the girl his father married, and I'm not the woman his mother planned for. I had already moved my money, already contacted an attorney, already secured every piece of evidence. They thought they were cornering me. They didn't know I'd built a trap around them first. And the next morning, the morning I chose to end everything, they walked right into it. The next morning, I woke up before him, not on purpose, My body just didn't know how to rest anymore. I sat at the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the wall, feeling this strange mix of numbness and razor-sharp clarity. Like everything inside me had burned down, and all that was left was structure. At 7 a.m., my attorney called. "Everything's ready," she said. "Once he leaves the house, file, and don't warn him." I didn't plan on warning him. When Mark finally rolled out of bed, he barely looked at me. He brushed his teeth, got dressed, and said he had to check on Mom later because she didn't sleep well after last night. I remember nodding. Calm, detached, the way you'd look at a coworker you barely knew. He grabbed his keys and paused in the doorway. "We'll talk tonight," he said. I think we need to figure out next steps." Next steps. The separation he thought he controlled. I let him walk out without a word. And the moment he was down the street, I moved. Step 1. File for divorce myself. My attorney uploaded every piece of evidence, the emails, the texts, the financial plans, the psychological manipulation. She included a request for protection of my assets and a motion documenting his mother's interference in our marriage. It wasn't emotional, it was administrative. Clean, cold, bulletproof. Step 2. Freeze the last joint account he didn't know I had access to freeze. The moment the bank clerk hit submit, half of his financial leverage vanished. Step 3. Call my HR department. Confirm my paycheck was redirected, update my emergency contact, and notify them of potential harassment if his mother tried anything. They flagged my profile. Step 4. Pack, not frantically, not tearfully, methodically. I packed my clothes, my documents, the gifts from my own family, my dog's things, my toiletries. Everything else. I left. The furniture, the appliances, the dishes. Let them keep it like trophies from a marriage they gutted together. I loaded everything into my car. And then came step 5, the part I'd been waiting for. I drove to Linda's house. Not to argue, not to confront, not to scream. Just to deliver the message that would end everything on my terms. She opened the door with a smug little smile, the same one she'd worn at the restaurant. "Where's Mark?" she asked. I held out a folder, served documents, proof of filing, the financial freezes. All neatly organized. "This," I said, "is the last time you interfere in my life." She flipped through the pages, color draining from her face. You can't do this. Mark didn't, he wasn't supposed to. That's the problem," I cut in. "You thought I wouldn't act unless he told me to, but I don't take orders from either of you." She sputtered something about me, misunderstanding the emails, how she was just helping him, how I must be unstable to react this way. I didn't bother arguing. Instead, I delivered the line I'd been saving. "You spent years trying to isolate him from everyone. Congratulations, you finally succeeded. He's all yours now, completely, because I'm done." Her hand shook. Her mouth opened and closed like she couldn't find air. I walked away before she could speak. Step 6, block Mark on everything. Phone, email, social media. I even blocked his workplace extension. By the time he realized the accounts were frozen, the divorce was filed, and I was gone. I was already checked into a short-term rental downtown with my dog sleeping beside me. He tried to show up at my office. Security turned him away. He tried to call from different numbers. Blocked. He tried to send his mother to my parents' house. They sent her off their porch with a warning that made her leave fast. A week later, my lawyer forwarded me a message from his. "Mark is very distressed. He would like reconciliation." I didn't respond. Another week passed, then another. And then my attorney forwarded one last message, short, defeated. "Please let her know I wish her the best." I did. I genuinely did. But the best thing I ever did for myself was leave a man who didn't know where he ended and where his mother began. In the end, I didn't get justice by exploding. I got justice by leaving the trap they built empty. And the kicker, 2 months after I left, I heard from a mutual friend that his mother was furious Mark wasn't lifting her spirits the way he used to. He apparently wasn't attentive enough anymore, not obedient enough, not controlled enough. Without me to blame, she turned that hunger inward, directly onto him. He created the monster by feeding it, and when I walked away, I starved it, and that was my revenge.